Rob on the mic, spitting truth from the heights. Queens unite under stadium lights. Bright nights, 7 train rides. Dreams born in the real hum. Brooklyn to Queens, yeah, we all about that outcome. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. From Flushing Meadows, echoes bounce off the bat. Rob calls, hit the mic, snaps like a thunderclap. Home runs over bridges, no gaps in the story. Mets rise, reclaiming the glory. 7 the city, blue and orange army swarm. Summer vibe electric, love in every form. From Biggie's blocks to Flushing's heartbeat. Our anthem loud, no retreat. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. The apple pops in the outfield, city of dreams. Rob's voice over static, Mets on every stream. White lines mapped out the future, vividly. From shade to city, the journey's never gimmicky.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome to the Mets Night Show right here on the channel and on X. And we do got a special guest here today. As you guys remember, Mr. Hayden from way back when, a few years ago, not many years ago. He's much older now. He is a college man, and he's enjoying that college life. Hayden, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, what's going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden here. I appreciate Rob for getting me on here. I know I am not Chris, so I'll try my best to give some good insight on our New York Mets. But yeah, good to be here. Good to be here. We are in the dog days of summer, if I could say it's summer anymore. Almost September, and yeah, I mean, we have about 30-something games left. There's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to say, good, bad, ugly, and such. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here with Rob and all of you guys watching and listening on YouTube, on Twitter, and all that such. Yeah, I'm excited to get into it, and let's go Mets.
Yeah, the Mets gave us a lot to get excited about. Some days, like the last 2 days, 22 runs in 2 games, and everybody's getting excited. Everybody's just looking for that sweep, and they fail us once again as we end up being 7 games back in the division. The Cincinnati Reds did win, so we're only a game and a half up in the third wild card. As you can see the standings in the middle of your screen. It is very interesting to see what this Mets team is going to do over the next 32 games or so, because it's not an easy schedule. They got one of the toughest schedules in baseball to end the season, and it's going to be tough. And failing to sweep the Braves just put a sour taste in everybody's mouth, because going into the series against the Braves, we're like, take 2 out of 3. Everybody will be okay. But it's always different when you win the first 2 and you have a chance to sweep and you blow it. And everybody can talk about the offense all they want. I was really annoyed about the pitching, because once again, the Mets gave them a lead and the pitching blew it. And I know it's not, the Mets should have scored 4 or 5 runs today, but they scored 22 runs in the last 2 games. At some point, the pitchers have to hold it, Hayden. And failing to sweep the Braves was all on the pitching today, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the moral of the story, what we've seen with the Mets since June, and, there's been some times where we've got the best of it, but, when they hit, they don't pitch. When they pitch, they don't hit. And in the first 2 games of those Brave series, we got the best of both worlds. The offense was hitting like we thought they would. Everyone talked about how this lineup is a offensive juggernaut. We saw that the first 2 games. And then, we talked about how this sneaky rotation that was so trusted, allegedly, was going to get the job done like they did last year. And that hasn't been the case. I mean, I could sit here and go off on the whole pitching staff, on this overtaxed bullpen. The 5 innings, it's a miracle, 6 innings, whatever. I think the first 2 games, everything clicked. We got the best of both worlds. But, you looked at today's game, and, I guess it's just, you have your foot on the pedal and you want to keep it that way. I think going into this series, any Mets fan would have signed up taking 2 out of 3. But you go in, you win the first 2 in a crazy manner. I mean, a blowout essentially, where everyone was red hot. The vibes were good. The pitching was great. And then, you go in today and you say, hey, the odds look in the Mets' favor. Peterson's been pitching great. Bryce Elder, who really only had like one or two good games this season, and one of them so happened to be against the Mets. You went in and you said, hey, let's see what we could do. We saw David Peterson his last outing, went 8 innings against the Nationals, and we were hoping we could see that today and see this offense break out more. Vientos is red hot, Beatty's red hot. The supporting cast guys are red hot. Soto's clicking. Lindor, I mean, he back with what we want out of him. And I guess just today was pretty much today was what we've seen from the Mets for a lot of this season. The pitching goes out there, gets a clean first couple innings, and then, they get to that, around that 90, 80 pitch mark, and something just doesn't click. The walks, the inability to come back in the count, we'll see they'll get 2-0, 3-0, and it's an automatic walk at that rate. I mean, they'll get 0-2, 1-2, and they manage to draw a walk still. And pitchers, you can't do that. You can't allow these hitters to extend the counts, extend their pitch count. And that's why, a big part of the reason why the Mets haven't been going deep into games this year is because second inning and their pitch counts at like 30, 40. So, yeah, I mean, you look today, Peterson looked good the first couple innings, mixed up his pitch as well. Everything was clicking. He was getting those strikeouts, getting those swinging and misses. And then the walks came in. And like I said in the comments, walks kill. That's the worst thing you could do is when you have 2 outs is to walk a batter. That is the absolute worst thing really any pitcher could do, starter, especially a reliever. Listen, say what you want about Peterson, should he have been pulled earlier on, Mendoza, whatever. I mean, shoulda, coulda, woulda. If Mendoza left him in, he's a hero. If Mendoza took him out, it's whatever. Soto came in, didn't really have it. He walks, hit by pitch. Like I said, the worst thing you could do when you have two outs and 2 strikes. Didn't have it. And, the offense, who was a profile, I think, just got a little bit of the ball and just punched it into the outfield and 2-run scoring. The Mets try and battled back. They did. And I honestly thought they were going to, but just unfortunate they weren't able to get the job done. And yeah, I mean, really just an unfortunate way to end the series. But at the end of the day, you took 2 or 3. The Braves are not making the playoffs. So I guess, like I said, win series. And that's what I'm asking for is win series. Sweeps are nice, but you got to win series. And that's what they did.
Yeah, that's exactly what they got to do. They got to keep on winning series here. It's unfortunate because, it didn't seem like a lot of people blamed Peterson. It was, Cedric Mullins didn't dive for a ball. Now, again, would Taylor have made that play? I think there was a pretty good chance. Sure. Supposedly, right? But that's a what-if scenario. Right? Yeah, like it's a what-if scenario, right? Cedric Mullins was playing in center field. Look, he thought he couldn't get to it. Whatever, if it was his bad first step, whatever it was, he decided not to dive for it, which, again, he dove for it the other day and missed it. And people killed him for that and said Taylor would have got that ball. So, it's do it, dive and miss it, or don't dive and try to keep a ball in front of you to prevent more guys from, moving an extra base. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And everybody talked about, right? Nobody wanted Tyrone Taylor in this lineup 2 weeks ago. Nobody did. They didn't care. Nobody cared about the defense enough to keep him in the lineup. It's just that simple. And if anybody actually wanted to care about the offense, it was about Juan Soto. It was about Brandon Nimmo, Lindor, Alonso, McNeil, Vientos. If you're worried about Tyrone Taylor's offense, then the top guys aren't doing their jobs. I would take a bad offensive player with a great defense, and you see how valuable center field is in defense just yesterday when he made a great catch on the Michael Harris line drive to a left center that looked like it was going to find some grass, and he went and just went all out and caught that ball. You need it's so important for a defensive player in center field, and it's so important, and it's only glaring when it doesn't work out in your favor. And you see what's happening now. People want a better hitter. Cedric Mullins is technically a better hitter, even though he had a really good series against the Braves. I think he was like 8 for 17 or something like that. A pretty good series. But nobody's talking about the good series. He was a factor in the Mets 2 wins against the Braves. He was. And he also got the ninth inning started with a base hit to right field. So he had a good game. Is he the best defensive player? No. But nobody cared about it until they see it in person, like, oh, defense does matter all of a sudden. And that's the issue that I think is unfortunate. But, and I wanted to see, he was, let's see, give me 1 second. I want to see the comment really quick. Yeah, Easy. I know we agreed earlier. He said that Tyrone Taylor's stands are corny. He was 7 for 76 before the Nimmo injury. Stop with the nonsense that he should play every day all of a sudden. I think we all agree with that. Nobody really wanted it, right? Some people wanted Mullins. More people wanted Luis Robert. But nobody wanted to trade anybody for those guys, or at least for Luis Robert. So you're stuck with what you got. So whatever you got offensively from Cedric Mullins is what you asked for. And you can't complain about the defense when you knew anybody who was going to be a replacement for Tyrone Taylor probably wasn't going to be as good defensively as Tyrone Taylor. You had to go into that knowing that. And a lot of people did it, unfortunately. And now, it's coming to roost now, and now they're upset. Now they realize, hey, you know what? I'd rather play Tyrone Taylor in center field. Why? Because your offense should take care of business regardless of Tyrone Taylor in the lineup, Hayden.
No, 100%, Robin. This is something that I've said 1,000 times going into the season, and really just in the past, is that, in today's baseball age, you look at the Mets, on paper, they have an elite lineup of Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Nimmo, McNeil. Vientos is keeping this up. Beatty is keeping this up. Alvarez is keeping this up and healthy. Really doesn't matter. I feel like there's kind of two positions in baseball where the defense is first and the offense is secondary, and I feel that is center field and catcher. And that's what we've been seeing recently out of I guess with the exception of Francisco Alvarez because he's hurt, but with guys like Luis Torrens and Tyrone Taylor. Right, Tyrone Taylor, I mean, there was a point this summer where Mets fans were saying, when was the last time Tyrone Taylor got a hit? He's a defensive, ninth, eighth inning defensive guy to come into games late for his defense, and his offense is secondary. And, a little bit different than kind of what we saw out of him last year, which was, expected. You're not going to get 20 home runs out of him. You're not going to get a crazy high average. He's a good glove, low average hitter. And I guess I hate to say it, but the offense is secondary. But unfortunately, Rob said it 100% to piggyback on that. When the top of the order is not doing anything and you have to rely on the supporting cast and then they don't get the job done, well, then it makes them look like the bad, the villain. Yeah. And, listen, should Tyrone Taylor have been in center field? Sure. At that point of the game, yeah, you put your best defense out there late in the games. I agree. Taylor is seemingly a much better defensive center fielder, whatever they were yapping about on SNY. I know that they were saying that Mullins doesn't feel comfortable playing left field, so that's why Mullins was in center and Taylor was in left. Whatever. Would Taylor have gotten the ball? Who knows? Would anyone else have? Who knows? At the end of the day, catch wasn't made. And not to go, but maybe the offense should have, not fell asleep for 3, 4, 5 innings. Yep. Maybe they should have battled back. I mean, they went 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position, left 7 guys on base. Maybe don't do that. So, at the end of the day, it's the little things that are essentially going to result in this team being a playoff team or not. It's the little things like that little thing there. It could be make or break. Like I said, I'm looking at it now, a game and a half above on the Reds. I saw the Reds won today, so they were able to salvage the series in Arizona. So at this rate, it's going to be a very long month with a lot of questions, a lot of moves, and everything is going to be looked at. It's like binoculars or an eyeglass. Everything that's going to happen is going to be judged very seriously. This isn't April. This isn't May. This is August. This is September. You're in a pennant race. Heck, you're fighting for a playoff spot. A week, boom. The Reds could be 3 games up. Mets could be 3 games back. You don't know. So at this rate, the Mets, they got to do everything they can. Simple as it is.
Yeah, and they are when it comes to Nolan McLean. Possibility of Jonah Tong coming up here over the Marlins series, because his next time out should be around Friday or Saturday or Thursday, Friday of this week. And that would be nice. That would actually be nice if you can actually see another one of these guys come up, because obviously, you can't trust Manaea and Senga, who's going in the Phillies series. So that's going to be interesting nonetheless. But, with Brandon Sproat now pitching in the bullpen, that's another interesting aspect, which, again, he didn't fare very well in his first out of the bullpen. But, again, I don't know if these kids are going to make the difference. I don't know. Like, if Senga and Manaea don't figure it out, do Mets really have a chance? Are you really going to put all your hopes and dreams and possibilities of McLean, Tong, and Sproat being the the DeGroms, Syndergaard, Matz, Wheeler? No, probably not. Harvey, like those guys. I mean, yeah, there's a possibility, but you know what those guys did? They actually pitched most of the season in the major leagues. Not these guys. These guys are going to pitch, 3 weeks into the fucking 4 weeks, 5 weeks into a season, and that's basically it. It's not enough time to throw these guys into the trenches and X them to be saviors here. It's not fair to them. And if the Mets ultimately fail at their goal, which should be the World Series, there's nobody to blame but David Stearns, who put this roster together. I think this roster is poorly put together, to be quite honest with you. I've said this for a while. The roster construction makes no sense. You have 14 infielders that play the same position on the Major League roster. You didn't trade any of them at the deadline because you're afraid to. And Acuna's in the minors, so he's just collecting dust and wasting away in the minors. Mauricio hasn't shown anything because he hasn't started, I think, how many days? 4 or 5 days. And he finally got a couple of bats today, and he looked terrible. So it's like, it's hard to continue to blame. It's hard to blame Mendoza here, to be quite honest with you, because I don't think the roster construction is good enough, or at least put together as good as it should be. And it puts Mendoza in a bad spot, Hayden. It really does. Because, what are you supposed to do? You want to play Mauricio. He's a top prospect, but he's not hitting. And you have to win games. So you got to put Vientos, who's starting to get hot. Beatty, who's been pretty good this year. And now you got to put, McNeil's playing well. Where are you playing all these guys? So somebody's going to sit that's a top prospect. Unless you're going to sit McNeil. Right now, you sat Beatty, Marte today, who was red hot, just to put Mauricio in the lineup to get him at bats. That's not a winning philosophy, and it's not Mendoza's fault, because you can't sit Mauricio and just sit him there. He's not a utility. He's not a utility veteran player. He's a guy that needs at bats. These kids play every single day, and now they're not. And I think that's the biggest problem. The roster construction sucks.
No, 100%, Rob. I think there's a mixture of the what ifs and who gets a blame, and I think it's like a pizza pie. I think everyone gets a little bit. Falls on the players, right? They're the ones going out there every day. Falls on David Stearns. Going into this season, he banked on a lot of guys having repeat years and being consistent for the full year. Whether that's a guy like Sean Manaea, whether that is a guy like Frankie Montas, whoever. Clay Holmes, I think he was definitely a big star candidate of will he be successful or not. I think some of the higher ups in the front office definitely get a blame of the puzzle. It comes down to everyone, the coaches, the it's everyone. Listen, when it comes to Mendoza, it's like, oh, fire him. Oh, okay, sure. Could be a little bit of a scary place. Listen, Mendoza, he's not gonna be he's not gonna be an elite manager. He's not whatever, but I think he's good for what the Mets have philosophy-wise and for the head. Is he going to make mistakes? Sure. Every manager makes mistakes. Mendoza's made plenty of mistakes this year. He wasn't going to have a 100% success season. He wasn't going to have a 162-0 season. That's, that's how it is. But he's been battling plenty of adversity. We saw how the two halves of this year and last year were completely different and how he battles through that. It's really not that much of a conversation for me. The whole Mendoza, fire him, blah blah blah. He's the manager. He's the manager for the next couple of years, and yeah. But when it comes to ahead, I mean, I don't know if you wanted to get into that, but from
Yeah,
what it
good.
sounded like, Rob, you and I agree. It's going to be hard for this team if they do get into the playoffs, which I hope they do. How can they successfully bank on guys like McLean, Tong, Sproat to be successful? Because I'm going to be honest, right now, I can't be going out there every fifth day. He can't. Senga, I feel like, is a coin flip. He'll give you 5-6 innings. Holmes, same thing. Really, the only starter I have trust in is 2 starts in is Noah McLean. That's it. Because he's a guy that goes out there, puts the ball in play, gets those strikeouts, keeps a low pitch count, doesn't have these 10, 15 pitch at bats, and he gets in and out of there quickly and lets his offense, on the field every, in a reasonable amount of time. Listen, it'd be heck of a story if they made the playoffs and miraculously won the World Series because of those 3 guys. That'd be a miracle story. That'd be maybe a little bit more miracle than the 86 Mets. But right now, something is going to continue to need to change. This is still a team where, the bullpen still has a hard time holding leads. I will give the team this. The runners in scoring position, hitting with 2 outs and hitting with 2 strikes, that philosophy's changed quite a bit, and I will give them that. But unfortunately, there's a whole other part of the success, and that comes to the pitching, and the pitching needs to step up. Talked about it, they talked about it, and I see it on the screen, 0-53 when trailing after 8 innings. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you want to be a playoff World Series caliber team, you have to have a couple comeback wins. You really need to have a couple comeback wins. And the fact that, the 8th inning comes and it's the white flag, I mean, good teams rally back. I mean, do or die, you fight to 27 outs. And that's what we saw a lot out of this team last year. We saw certain parts of it this year, sure. But if you're not playing to 27 outs, then, it's going to be hard to be successful in the playoffs. So, I mean, it is frustrating.
Yeah. And, today was the first day, starting with Peterson, that the rotation's going on regular rest. And that was a big topic of conversation on the pregame show with me and Chris, that, they haven't done this all year. A lot of these guys, a couple of times this year, but not consistently. David Peterson looked like he was exhausted at the end of his outing. And that was after an 8-inning performance against Washington. And you fall into this situation where people are upset that who would you rather have on the mound? David Peterson, who's been your best starter all year, or somebody in the bullpen that nobody ever trusts or doesn't trust enough? You're going to go with your better pitcher. And I'd rather Peterson either do or die on the mound than somebody that's going to come in and blow it up anyway. So, and on top of that, at some point, you got to push these starters. They did it yesterday with Clay Holmes, which everybody was shocked about. And he actually touched the rubber in the 7th inning, and everybody was like, whoa, okay.
Miracle.
And they did it with McLean as well. So they're pushing these starters because you have to. Not only is it, crunch time and the end of dog days of summer going into September, you got to push these guys. If you're not going to push them at any point in the season, what do you think is going to happen in the playoffs when you have to push them and you don't have a choice but to push them on regular rest? Then what happens? You're going to blame them for failing at something they haven't done all season? And this is the biggest omen and the biggest problem. Is Kodai Senga, the fraud that he is. I cannot stand this guy. I swear, he makes me like so many players on the Mets that failed more than this guy. I cannot stand this guy. I'm hoping I eat my words late out in the offseason and Senga, this pitch is great from here on out, because I'd rather be wrong than right and the Mets win. To be quite honest with you, I would love for that to happen, but I cannot stand this guy. The Mets last year always had regular rest. Occasionally they would, give extra days off when they can. Senga wasn't in this rotation, so they didn't have to worry about a 6-man. They didn't have to worry about giving extra days off and making a 6-man rotation and giving everybody 5 days off. It was normal rest for all these guys last year. Now Senga's healthy, not really, but healthy enough that he's in the rotation. And now we have to go through a 6-man rotation. And with the 6-man rotation, you give extra days rest. These guys are, some of them are good with that rest, but Manaea pitched great last year with just regular rest. David Peterson was outstanding on regular rest in 170 innings last year. And now with Clay Holmes and Senga, you have to, change up this whole philosophy of rotation and extra days rest. It's ridiculous. And you get outings like Senga has been given. It's not worth it. Like, does anybody have confidence in him going tomorrow on regular rest for the first time this year? I mean, I don't even know if I want to watch. Like, I might just, go to work and just don't even listen. Like, listen to another game, because I don't trust them at all. If the Mets don't score 9 runs in this game, they're not winning, in my opinion. Kodai Senga, he has a little over a 5 ERA with the limited number of times he's pitched on regular rest, Hayden. He has over a 5 ERA. Why do I think it's going to turn out to be roses tomorrow? Because I don't believe it at all. I don't.
Yeah, no, Rob, it's tough. And I 100%, concur. Senga's a very frustrating person. I mean, essentially, we really, going back to 2023, we built a 6-man rotation for him. And then in result, we get, 4 innings, barely 5, if even, high pitch count, walks, some hits. And I mean, the team is behind. The offense is behind, and they have to battle back. I mean, and I get it. He was pitching great. He was lights out. He was phenomenal. Before that was the hamstring. Mm-hmm. And ever since he came back from that, he's just looked like a completely different pitcher. And then I wonder if that injury is still lingering with him right now, and it's clearly affecting him. And right, tomorrow, I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, I can't remember the last time he pitched on 5 days rest. There's definitely none this season, to my knowledge.
2023, and I think that was only 3 times, maybe. Yeah. Other than that, it's been all.
And it's hard, I mean, I've never been a big advocate or a proponent for a 6-man rotation, because of I don't think one pitcher necessarily should determine everyone else's schedule, unless it's a Cy Young caliber pitcher who is going to win 5 Cy Youngs and a Hall of Famer, which, no offense, Senga, don't see that quite yet. But, right now, I mean, it's hard, and then you have it because I know they're trying to limit Clay Holmes' innings because he surpassed that mark. I don't know what they're trying to do with Sean Manaea. He is, I guess also they're limiting him because he's coming back from injury. And then even David Peterson, you can make a case for, because he surpassed the innings pitched for his career high, essentially, in all the other seasons. So it's hard. I mean, I feel like it, and I get it, 2025 baseball pitchers are not going deep into games, but when you have to, I mean, pretty much beg for 5 innings with 2 runs, I mean, that would be an ideal start for me. I would consider that a victory for the Mets pitching staff, but we just haven't been seeing that. And, and I get it. You could sit here, AAA, they're coddled, pitch count, whatever, and comes up to the major leagues. And, well, you see the consequence of that. But, I mean, that's a whole story argument for another day. But when it comes to Kodai Senga and this pitching staff, it's definitely hasn't worked out in Stearns' favor this season. I think it's safe to say. We'll see. Hopefully I sound like an idiot, but I am very worried and skeptical if this team does make the playoffs, how they are going to go. Because, I mean, who is your ace? I mean, it's Peterson, but who is your ace? McLean? Are you kidding me? This guy who's going to make 4-star, it's been great, but that's kind of wild to say. It'd be a cool miracle story, I guess. But that was another thing, you can make the argument, we've never had a certified ace. That's a huge thing. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'm assuming, Rob, you kind of feel the same way. I've I've heard you say that a couple times on your streams in the past. And it's just, it's frustrating. Then you see this bullpen gets overtaxed, and Ryan Helsley, he's been a disaster since joining the Mets. And I hear, he's pitching. He needs to pitch in the ninth inning. Pitched in the ninth inning the other night. He got lit up. So I don't know if it's tipping pitches. I don't know if it's mechanics. He's a guy that's going to need to figure it out. You look at Rogers, he's been fine. You look at Gregory Soto, he's been expected. He's not a elite bullpen arm, but he's not bad. But yeah, I mean, really, and then, this bullpen is just overtaxed. I mean, look at guys like Reed Garrett. So it's just frustrating. It's just hard. It's like, you sit here and you say the same thing in circles and circles, and it just nothing gets done. And I think, people make the argument, should they call up Sproat? Should they call up Tong? I mean, at this rate, what do you have to lose?
They can't be worse.
Right. I mean, would you rather lose with them, or would you rather lose with, I feel like it's a coin flip. I mean, I'd rather lose with Tong and Sproat, however you say it, than lose with a Manaea, or, I'd rather see them than get the automatic 3 1/3, 4 runs, 90 pitches.
Yeah. Oh, you're good. You're good.
No, I was going to say, a thing that I think should have been approached at the deadline, was a starting pitcher. Look at Trevor Rogers in Baltimore right now. He's been phenomenal. And where are they going this October? Oh, to their couches. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think starting pitching was a key to acquisition, like possible, to get at the deadline. It just, I don't know. I know that's like, it's almost a month ago already. And I know you can't change that situation at the moment, but I don't know. Like I said it from day one. I never trusted this pitching rotation. I thought the pitching rotation was going to be a problem, and it turned out it was. I hope it wasn't. And they looked like gangbusters the first 2 months. But again, everybody was like, "Well, Senga was pitching great the first 2 months." Yeah, because he had a whole offseason to rest. Like he's coming out as fresh as possible. Right. The Mets barely pitched him in spring training. He basically had like 4 months off, basically. He had a whole year off last year until a couple of times in the playoffs. But that is the biggest problem, is the fact that there is no confidence going in. And you said it, Hayden, there's no ace. Like, go around the league, even non-playoff teams and non-contenders have a goddamn ace. But look at the contenders that we're facing right now. Like, obviously, Zach Wheeler got hurt, right? You can't predict the blood clot. Like, you just can't. Right. But they had an ace, right? They pinpointed an ace, even though Ranger Suarez is probably a better pitcher than everybody the Mets have at the moment. Like, that's how good he's been. But look around the league. The Yankees, I was just watching Carlos Rodon. Now, I think he's a bum. But you know what? Carlos Rodon would be better than most guys in this rotation right now. Even with Cole being out, they got Max Fried. They have an ace. You go around, you keep on going around the league. Look at the Dodgers. They got about 42 aces. I know a lot of them get hurt, but they'll be there in the playoffs. That they find a way to be healthy during the playoffs. Keep on going around the league, right? Look at the Brewers and what they're doing with their rotation. Like, it's everybody. There is not one Met fan that can confidently say, again, I'm going to do another poll because it seems like every month I do a poll. Who is your ace pitcher for game 1 in the playoffs? And couple of months ago, it was David Peterson.
Probably.
Right? A couple of people said Manaea. But I guarantee you this time it's going to be McLean. Everybody's going to say McLean just because. You know why? Because it's a recency bias. He's pitched better than everybody else over the last couple of starts. So when you don't have a clear-cut ace, and don't tell me that doesn't matter, because people love to comment saying, it doesn't matter. It does matter, because if all your starters are rested and you still have to sit in a room and figure out who's going to pitch game 1, you don't have an ace. Like, even during years when the Mets have made the playoffs, we knew who was going to be our ace. Obviously, we had a couple of top starters in Scherzer and DeGrom, but you had a choice. You had a choice in 2022. 2015, we had choices. Even last year, we knew as good as Sean Manaea was, he was our game one starter. Obviously, it didn't necessarily work out that way because we had to play game 161 and 162 to make the playoffs. So we didn't have much of a choice. But when they did have a choice, Manaea was there when he was needed. And it's not there right now. And it's unfortunate. It's a problem. And that's another reason why the Mets can't hold leads, because they don't have real starters here. We got
Right.
Clay Holmes is a bullpen arm to starter. David Peterson is trying to hold on for dear life and being the only guy that knows how to pitch in this rotation. You got Manaea and Senga just, collecting paychecks. And Montas is now done for the season. He was in a bullpen. Now not. Tyler McGill is out for how many months now with an injury. And your rotation completely falling apart. And then you wonder why we can't hold leads over the last month of the season. This whole month, I think we had 15 blown leads. It's probably more at this point. I checked a couple of days ago. So they blew one today. They blown 15 leads in games over about a 22 game stretch. That's ridiculous, Hayden. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it cannot happen. But it happened. And that's why they've been losing. To be quite honest, the pitchers can't hold leads, regardless if it's a lot of runs or a little bit of runs. If you have leads, the pitchers got to hold it at some point. They didn't even hold a 2-0 lead today. And then we have to score 6 runs a game. It's insane. It's not sustainable.
And, I think the thing that's frustrating is, listen, you could sit here and say, oh, David Stearns, this rotation masterclass was a failure, bullpen, whatever. And, you have to look at it, going into this season, and everyone says, oh, but, hey, and everyone tells me, oh, Hayden, our pitching staff was at the best DRA in the first 2 months. I don't care. This isn't a 60-game season. If this was a 2020 60-game season, tip of the cap. This is a Cy Young team. But unfortunately, it's a 162-game season, and you have to be ready and predict things are going to happen. Injuries happen. Any call-ups. Guys, get fatigued. The dog days of summer come, and that was the issue. Mets were cruising out there, April, May, and then mid-June came. Clay Holmes surpassed his innings pitched. Senga got hurt and was dealing with this every other day pitching scenario. Montas, I don't even know what to say. That was a disaster from day one. And right, so you have to deal with David Peterson. He was approaching that mark and he already surpassed it. You were banking on a lot of guys to be successful and hold what they were going to hold in May for the whole season. And that's not going to happen in baseball, unfortunately. And I think the Mets, they said, okay, we'll approach it at the deadline. They didn't. And, now you come to August, you have this overtaxed bullpen that, like Rob said, has a hard time holding leads when they're pitching back-to-back days. Everyone says, oh, we need to be careful with our starters. How about our bullpen arms? I mean, the amount of innings pitched, Reed Garrett, he's like overtaxed. He's finished for the year, it looks like. Because, these guys are being thrown out there every single day for a week. You can't have that. Those are actually guys you do have to build up if you do want to make them starters for whatever reason. And the Clay Holmes thing, I don't even know what to say with that. I think it's a story for another day, but it's fine if you want to convert a reliever into a starter. But when half of your rotation is also banking on success and having those innings pitched concern, it makes it hard. If for whatever reason Clay Holmes was on a rotation with 4 starters who have pitched anywhere from 150 to 200 innings the last couple of years, yeah, no one would care.
Yep.
But because of that, it makes it harder for Clay Holmes to go out there. So yeah, it's frustrating that the pitching can't get the job. And right now, Rob said it. I would probably say it has to be David Peterson that would go out on there for game 1. Game 2, game 3, if it gets to that, you're kind of just flipping a coin at this rate, and it's a 50-50 shot. So, and it's crazy because, I see people like, oh, but look at the Dodgers, their whole rotation. Yeah, which is interesting, and you can make the case, oh, the Dodgers offense is a little bit more of a juggernaut that's consistent. But it's interesting to see a case. Look at the Dodgers last year. I mean, heck, they won the World Series with how many different pitchers did they use? And that's the case. Look at the Mets this year. How many different pitchers did the Mets use this year? It has to be probably a record for them.
It's a lot. It is definitely a lot. But yeah, it's like, the Dodgers pitchers get hurt, but you know what? When they come back, they're actually aces. You know what I'm
Right, they're
saying?
so
Like Mania, I'm sorry, I never considered him an ace. Too many people did. Kodai Senga, same thing. Oh, we're getting Mania and Senga back. Like, they don't excite me. Blake Snell excites me. Yamamoto excites me. Those guys are top pitchers, right? Everybody can say, oh, well, you talk about Blake Snell. You're not a big fan of Blake Snell. I'm not. But you know what? If he was on my team, he'd be our best pitcher. Like, seriously, he would be our best pitcher. Like, these guys come back healthy later into the season, and they'll pitch in the playoffs. And I know they'll be top starters. Has Mania shown any resemblance of last year? None. He's got miles per hour down about 1 to 2 miles an hour off his fastball. So that high fastball he was blowing past everybody last year, it's not happening this year as much. So they're sitting on, his sweeper and hopefully getting that fastball in the zone, because it's 92, 93 miles an hour, 91, 92. And he was throwing 93 to 95 last year, mostly 93, 94. But those 2 miles an hour make a difference when you already don't throw hard. So I don't know. The starting pitching, the bullpen, none of these guys can hold leads, consistently enough where you can put a stretch together of games that you can win. Like, there's no stopper in this rotation. This lineup is expected now to do it every single day now. If you don't score 5 runs or more, you're not winning.
Yeah.
If they score 4 runs or less, they're losing a ball game. Because
and you can't do that in baseball.
No,
today.
you can't. You got to win low-scoring games. And everybody, I love how Met fans forget. April and May, that's all we did was win low-scoring games. That's all we did, because the offense wasn't scoring. We were winning 2-3, 2-1, 1-0 victories a lot. Now we're not doing that, and we're scoring more runs. So
I mean, look.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Look at the beginning of the season. The amount of times Edwin Diaz was used, the amount of save situations that we saw out of guys in April and May. They won a lot of low-scoring games. They won these 2-3 games, 5-4. They won close, low-scoring affairs. And now, I mean, the Mets score 3 runs, and it's like, oh, get more. You can't, And then even then, if you're losing a game, like we saw some other games, when you're losing games like 12-9, 12-10, yeah, that's still, not good, because it shows your pitching's been horrible.
Yeah. It's a combination of everything. Like, the offense didn't show up early in the season. The pitch is now not showing up in the end of the season. And it's a big, the consistency was never there together. Everybody's hoping that they come together as a consistent bunch the last month of the season. But, I mean, that's a lot of hope.
Yeah, we haven't seen any.
That is a lot of hope. Yeah, that is a lot of hope, unfortunately.
And
but,
it's.
Dolo says, Rob, if we had an ace, Tong would not be called up this year. Stearns is desperate. Yeah. Again, I don't know how you feel, Hayden, about this, but David Stearns' plan was not to bring these kids up this year. That was obvious from how they're using them right now and the way they were pitching them in the minors. Like, they were throwing a ton of innings in the minor leagues just to stretch them out for next year. This wasn't a situation where they planned on, because if they planned on bringing these guys up in August and September or even earlier, they wouldn't be throwing them 6-7 innings almost every time out. They would have been watching their innings at every step of the way, and they haven't done that. So the desperation of the rotation not being good, failing, injuries, and oh, by the way, David Stern, sat on his hands and not acquire a rotation arm. You can tell me all you want. Well, not a lot of rotations got traded. So why did the Mets have to follow suit with every other team? Why didn't you just overpay for a starting pitcher? Maybe that could have been the difference, but you'll never know. You'll never know. But I do know one thing: the rotation hasn't gotten better since the deadline. The rotation has been just as bad since the deadline. So you end up having a roster and a rotation that you put together and weren't willing to overpay a little bit. Like, you could have got a solid pitcher. You could have got somebody that's better than Frankie Montas. You could have got somebody better than a Kodai Senga. You could have.
Trevor Rogers, he's been great.
You didn't want to overpay. And you know what? Some probably would say, well, I didn't want to overpay. Well, then why are you mad? Because you wanted this. If you didn't want to overpay, you don't want to give up top prospects to land a starting pitcher, then why are you mad at the shit that Stearns gave you? You weren't willing to do it because there's too many prospect huggers in this damn fan base that pisses me off. And with David Stearns and his propaganda and his communist team that he runs, because that's how it is, right? He couldn't wait to get on through the media 30 minutes after the deadline to talk about the prospects because he knew he didn't do anything at the deadline to warrant helping this rotation. So we're back to the same thing. And easy, it doesn't matter. Name a pitcher. Name a pitcher. Don't tell. You say this all the time. Who was the starting rotation you would have overpaid for? Who? Sandy Alcantara, Edward Rodriguez, Zach Gallen, right? We talked about all these guys, right? Yeah, they didn't get traded because nobody was willing to overpay. But why did the Mets have to follow suit with everybody else? You know why other teams didn't overpay for starting pitching? Because they probably had an ace of their staff, unlike the Mets. All right, that's a fact, right? There was teams like the Yankees. There was teams like the Red Sox. There was teams all over contention that were in on these pitchers. They didn't overpay because they looked at your rotation and say, hey, why am I going to overpay when I got this guy as my ace? The Mets didn't have that. You look at the board, sucks, kind of good, sucks. That's what you have. So don't tell me, and he wasn't going to give prospects for rental. Okay, but he gave 12 prospects up for 3 rentals in the bullpen. What's the difference? What's the difference? And by Sandy Alcantara was under control. Edward Cabrera, was under control. So they weren't rentals. Zach Gallen, I'll give you. But they would be better than what we have. The teams that didn't overpay already had better guys in their rotation, at least at the top. That's why they didn't overpay. The Mets they desperately needed, since June, a top starter, a top 2 starter. Everybody was talking about it. Oh, no, I was talking about it. Everybody was concerned about the offense. Nobody cared about the pitching. Nobody cared about the pitching until the deadline is over, and everybody's like, oh, well, the pitching sucks. Well, guess what? Now you're living in it. You wanted to keep your prospects. You did. Congratulations. You're officially a prospect hugger. I might just make stickers and send it to people because you guys are a joke with that. I'm sick and tired of it because at some point, you got to make that deal. Easy. You know what? Yeah, I would have. You know why? Because I know what Sandy Alcantara is. I know what Edward Cabrera is. They're proven guys. Proven guys. Did you see how Alcantara pitched since the All-Star break? Pretty good. I'm not saying excellent, but better than almost every one of our pitchers. And by the way, we got McLean, who's pitched 2 games when you could have had Sandy Alcantara pitch 4 more games over this stretch, and you'll have him because, again, he's an ace. I know he's not as good as he was last year, but he's coming off of Tommy John, and you also have him for years to come. Yeah, I would have done that because everybody's fixated on Nolan McLean and Jonah Tong, and they might be really good. They might be. But they might not be good enough this year. If you don't care about this year, then you know what? Press the X button and go get out of the channel. Because if you don't care about this year, then why are you watching? Why are you continuing to comment on a channel that gives a shit about 2025?
Right. It comes to a point of, I want the Mets to win a World Series this year, not in 3 years from now. And, obviously, I used to be a very big prospect hugger. I was very big on this homegrown talent, da-da-da-da-da. And, I mean, what has it gotten the Mets the last 10 years? I mean, it hasn't really gotten them anything yet. It's frustrating. It really sucks. And it comes to the point where I'm willing to ship up certain prospects for certain guys. And, I mean, look at the Dodgers. Do you think they care whoever wants to in the chat, say whatever moves the Dodgers made last trade deadline. Do you think they care what they gave up? They probably don't even know. They probably don't even remember. The only thing they remember is that they won a World Series.
Yeah.
I hate to break it, but Mets haven't won a World Series since quite some time. The drought is clicking. I was looking at some athletic thing, and it said like teams that have some of the longest droughts. Mets were pretty high on that list. I think Mets were like 5th or 6th in baseball for the longest drought. Something around those lines. Win a World Series.
And Easy just says, "Oh, the only thing that I would give up those guys was for Joe Ryan." Yeah, well, duh. But again, it's okay for the Padres to send their number 1 prospect there. 3 out of their top 5 prospects.
Something the Mets don't have.
Yeah, like it's just impossible. Like, it's frustrating because of the fact that everybody continues to act like these prospects are going to be, a Paul Skeens or close to that. And you know what? They might be very good, but you keep on wasting seasons away. And when Lindor's 34 years old and Nimmo's basically in a wheelchair in left field and Pete Alonso is 34 years old and McNeil's off this team and your core is old as shit. And now you have basically barely any infielders that actually are in their prime anymore. Then you're going to wonder, oh, wow, we wasted those years away. You continue to waste years.
It's all I hear with David Wright. It's all I hear. Oh, it's such a shame David Wright didn't win a World Series. During his retirement, That's all I heard. It's all I heard. Similar. You're repeating it right now. But, choose 4 different players if you want, or 3.
Like that's the thing. I truly believe that you could have got Edwin Cabrera or Sandy Alcantara. I think you might have had to give up one of Jonah Tong, Nolan McLean, and Brandon Sproat, right? One of those plus more, of course. But you know what? You could have gave up Acuna. You could have given up Vientos. You could have given up a whole combination of guys. You could have given up Jet Williams, right? What is everybody afraid of? What is it afraid of? What if one of those pitchers could make a difference on a team that's supposed to be a World Series contender? Like, why do we have to always sit back and half-ass the deadline? And then when we lose, everybody's like, how do we lose? Why do we lose? Because I guarantee you the reason why we're going to lose is because of our starting pitching. And if we lose because of our starting pitching, don't be upset that you lost. Because I'm going to go back to Easy during the offseason and be like, why did we lose? Well, it was the starting pitching. Well, you didn't want to give up prospects. And Nolan McLean and Jonah Tong and Brandon Sproat aren't going to be here long enough this year to warrant making a tremendous difference. I don't think they will. You're putting a ton of pressure on these kids. And if they do, I'll be the first one to apologize. But that's a big if, huge if, because I don't even think these guys are going to be starting games in the playoffs, let alone being a major factor in this rotation. You really think they'll throw Tong out there over Minaya or Senga? They get on their knees for Senga. And Sean Minaya is boy wonder to Met fans and this organization. These guys are going to pitch in the early part of postseason games. It's a fact. So you lived in the bed with the prospect hugging. Congratulations. You're living in what you wanted, right? They're bringing the kids up now. Everybody wants the prospects to be up here. They're up here. They're going to be up here in about a week or so. Congratulations. You'll get the same nonsense that we've been continuing to get. Failed prospects that probably aren't ready yet. And if they are, it's kind of too late. It's kind of too late. And Easy, you say, because you have this problem about saying the right guy wasn't available. No, there was right guys. There's guys that were out there that were better than everything you have. Those are right guys. Everybody wants Joe Ryan. You don't think a team, but here's the thing. Nobody wanted to overpay because they had aces. They had pitchers, but they wanted to fill up their rotation. The Mets have nothing to fill up. They needed top starters. So again, when they lose and the pitching's going to be the factor, the X factor here, I will say Easy. Well, at least we held on to our prospects. So we have to go into year 40 of not winning the World Series because it's the 40th anniversary next year of them winning the World Series in 1986. I wasn't born. Hater wasn't born. And there's some people in this damn chat that were not born and were very young when they won. Right? I'm sick and tired of waiting until next year. And then when they lose, I don't want to hear excuses because they had the money, they had the prospects. At some point, teams like the Dodgers, teams like the Rangers, teams like the Braves were able to trade for what exactly they needed at the deadline, and it ultimately made them win championships. Do they really give a shit that they sent Acuna away for Scherzer? No, they don't give a shit. The Astros with Verlander, they don't give a shit. You think they care about Gilbert
right now?
Well, yeah. Scherzer would be our number 2 starter the way he pitches, and he hasn't been that good. That's how sad it is, right? Does anybody care? Does the Astros care about Ryan Clifford? No, they don't. They don't. You know why? Because it ultimately got the person they wanted. Did they win a championship that year? No, but the Astros already have a few in the bag.
Thing is,
but they still went out and did it.
They say they want to win. Say, oh, want to win a World Series. Let's do it. But then you don't want to trade guys. But then you don't want to call them up. So it's what is it? Are you because I was told by our owner 5 years ago, I'd like to win a World Series in 3 to 5 years or else I'd be disappointed. And well, I guess you could say I'm disappointed because I don't think that's happening.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, so what are we doing? Are you calling them up? Are you just going to run it back next year? What's the game plan? Can this team handle expectations? That is being brought up all on again. So yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. I want to see this team win a World Series, get in the playoffs for a start. And listen, you never know. There could be some miracle story. Look at them last year. Sure. But I think the difference with last year is they started off bad and played well going into the playoffs. So they had that success. This is that they're battling for the battle of the mid, I guess you could say.
Yeah, Johnny, who was it? Dolo did say, we'll be back next year, right? We said that in 2015 after we lost the World Series, right? Everything was going to be fine because we had the rotation of our dreams. Everybody forgot that. I mean, we're on Generation 3.0, Generation K 3.0 at this point. From the 90s Generation K to the 2015 Generation K 2.0, and now we're on Generation K 3.0. Like, we have to learn here from our mistakes. Like, a lot of times history repeats itself. It often repeats itself a lot. And I'm not saying these kids are going to be bad or good, but if they were so good, why didn't you start them here from the beginning, from the jump, like Hayden said? Why not? You let them throw 100+ innings in the minors because you did not plan for this to happen. And that's a failed job by the David Stearns.
Right. And the thing I find interesting is, they say, the Mets love their prospects. They have elite prospects. 1, where are they? 2, no one's ever really heard of them outside of the Mets system. And 3, I mean, you guys have probably all heard this. However, I'm just going to say it. Don't the Mets have like 13% of their prospects actually make it to the MLB? I know they were last. They were like 28th, 29th, or 30th. They were extremely dead last for, I guess, like players to be drafted to make it to the MLB. May have been lower than 13. I don't know. That says it right there. I was born in 2002. I'm 23 years old. In my lifetime, I've seen a Phillies World Series, a Braves World Series, a Dodgers World Series, 2 technically, and a Yankees World Series. Heck, a Nationals and a Marlins World Series. So every team in the NL East has won it, except the Mets.
Yep.
I don't care what it takes. Win a World Series. Win a World Series. Because I don't want to be sitting here coming February saying, oh, let's do this to win.
Yep.
And the low Mets agenda, because it's all I hear is I have Marlins and Rays fans talking shit to me. Like, are you kidding me? And they bring up valid points. Hey, I can't talk back because they bring up valid points.
Listen, when the Marlins have the same amount of championships as you, and they were in existence 30 years after you, that's a problem.
Even the Rays fans say, "Oh, well, we have the same amount of pennants since we've been founded than you guys." And what am I supposed to say? Oh, but we had the 86 Mets. It's frustrating. I think at the end of the day, this is the team you got. You got to run with it for September. And if these guys want to play in October, they're going to have to fight for it. And, the only team they're going to beat is themselves. Yeah, the Reds are going to be there. The Reds are a good team. I'll give the Reds props. They have a very underrated pitching staff. Sneaky offense. Good team in that NL Central. The odds of the Mets passing the Dodgers and or Padres is slim. Cubs, a little bit more reasonable. They've been a little bit on a downfall. Post-deadline, the Brewers have been really good in that NL Central as well. But the Mets are, this is the team they got. They get the September call-up, whatever. This is the team they got. The offense needs to step up. Lindor's playing great. Soto's playing great. This Fab Four, whatever. Sure. Pitching, and now it's the pitching's turn. It's kind of like a seesaw. It goes like one side. So at the end of the day, pitching needs to get the job done. Really just the whole team. It's a team loss.
Yep, and it's okay though, because we brought up McLean so late, we get an extra draft pick, so everybody should be excited.
Yeah,
for our draft pick, I'm excited. I'm so excited for the guy to come up in 2032. I mean, why not? I mean, Hayden's gonna have gray hair by then. I'm gonna be in a wheelchair. I mean, it's great. It's wonderful. I mean, whoa! I can't wait till that time. And Pete Alonso is 40 years old. And, we're talking about him, his number in the rafters because he hits the most home runs in Mets history, but we still don't have a World Series banner. It's okay, though. So let's keep on loving these guys that don't bring us any type of championship. So, but hey, it's okay. It's all right because, next year's next year. Who cares about this year anymore? Nobody cares. The Mets don't. So why should we? With that said, with the Mets and Phillies coming up, Mets are down 7 games in the division because of a performance of wonderful proportions today. They found a way to lose that game. And the Phillies, who are still not playing great, in my opinion, got a 7-game lead based on the Mets playing like shit. And they hold a 1.5 lead in the division in the wild card, and who knows, right? I don't even know at this point. You got 32 games to go. Any final words, Hayden, when it comes to this Phillies series and what you hope to see and what you expect to see from this Mets team over the last month?
I mean, it's going to be quite the series. Obviously, Phillies are 7 games up on the Mets. If you're the Mets, you're probably shooting for that last wild card spot. I hate to say it, but it seems like the division is out of reach. Obviously, the Mets do play 7 more games against the Phillies this season, but the odds of them taking all 7 and then continuing to play successful against other teams, it's a pretty small percentage, I'd like to say. So, if you're the Mets, and honestly, it's like, listen, you want to win the division, sure, but at this rate, with how Major League Baseball is, you get into the playoffs, you get hot, and you move up the bracket. So, getting to that last wild card spot, the second wild card spot, however it is, they have to get in. This is a good Phillies team. Definitely a lot different than when the Mets saw the Phillies when they went to Citi Field. The Mets swept them, but these are 2 different teams that have one got worse, one got better. Game 1, you got Christopher Sanchez. He's been phenomenal for the Phillies so far. Southpaw, the Mets have really had a hard time hitting left-handed pitching for the most part this season, so you hope they could try and jump on him early. Obviously, Senga's a guy who is going to need to really lock in. You got Luzardo, another lefty. So game 2 also, he hasn't been good, but Mets numbers against lefties have not been there. And it seems that if you're a bad pitcher, you're apparently Cy Young against the Mets. And then Sean Manaea. And then let's see, just game 3. Yeah, you got Taijuan Walker versus McLean. So that's probably the biggest game I would like to say the Mets have a good shot at victory. But we're just going to have to wait and see. Offense is good. Turner's been great. Kyle Schwarber, I mean, he's a man on a mission. It's Phillies lineup that's just producing on all cylinders. JT Realmuto has been red hot. Their bullpen's great. They got some great trade deadline acquisitions. Duran, So it's going to be an exciting series. Hopefully it's kind of going to look. I know it's a little bit earlier than when it was last year, but it was like the last week of the season or last 2 weeks of the season. The Mets played the Phillies in New York, and it was just electric. You hope the Mets can try and do something like that again. Like I said, it's a 3-game set. I think the best would be 2 out of 3. The worst probably would be swept, but I'm hoping the worst for them is 1 of 3. More of the story is, and it sucks because it's the first 2 games that the bullpen could be overtaxed. Like if you had McLean starting game 1, it's like, oh, well, hopefully he can give you 6, 7. But you got Senga and then Mania. So you hope that they can try and at least give you 5 innings. Whatever, how many runs they give up, hopefully it's not a lot, but you hope they can try and give you the amount of innings. The offense, I'm not too worried about, considering that they've been pretty good recently. This offense has broken out. It's just the pitching is going to come to a big start. The pitching and the bullpen holding leads and simply enough just executing, getting that 3rd strike, getting that 3rd out. So yeah, at the end of the day, get the job done. I'd love a sweep. I'd come on here and throw a party if that was the case, but take 2 or 3. I'd be satisfied with that. Be more than happy with that. And yeah, let's just go out there, win a series, game by game, series by series. Because like I said, this is a team that, should hopefully finish with that 3rd wild card spot if things kind of continue to play the way they do. I know all I see is, oh, look at the Reds, and it's like the SNY, the broadcaster showing the Reds standings. I don't want to focus on, and I said this a lot, I don't want to focus on another team's failure for my team's success.
Yep.
If the Mets play good and go out there and win games, who gives a crap about what the Reds do? Just go out there and win games, and then it doesn't matter if the Reds win or lose. So, moral of the story is win, play good, pitching does their job, go 5, 6 innings, offense, score a good amount of runs. Let's go Mets and screw Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, the Mets have to sweep to really feel like the division's still in play for the remainder of the year. I don't see that happening, but crazier things have happened. They lost their ace, but that was after the deadline. I truly believe if they would have lost Wheeler prior to the deadline, they would have went out and got an ace or a top line starter, because that's what real teams do at the deadline when they're trying to win a World Series. Unlike the Mets, who will tell you that prospects are the only thing that matters, and the Mets fall in love with homegrown talent. The Met fans fall in love with homegrown talent, but they never win. And all we have to rely on is retired numbers that with Pete Alonso, if he's a career Met, and if you don't win, it's pointless, right? Keith Hernandez, Darryl Strawberry, Doc Gooden, all didn't remain Mets or came out late in their career. All retired numbers. You know why? Because they won the World Series, not because they were great people. They were druggies and bad people. Yet we honor them because they won a World Series. I'm sick and tired of honoring players that don't bring us a championship. I don't care about individual statistics, right? David Wright's up there. I love David Wright, but he ultimately was part of the 2 worst choke jobs in Mets history in 07 and 08. And those were great teams. So unfortunately, I care about winning the World Series. I'm not sure if everybody's aligned in the Mets organization with that. And sustained success shouldn't only be making the playoffs. It shouldn't be. With a $300+ million, $326 million payroll, that should be mandatory. So unfortunately, 32 games to go. Got the Phillies and Marlins in a 7-game homestand. Continue to do what you need to do. Again, you have everything in your hands. Everything. All you got to do is win, and you maintain the wild card at the very least. So with that said, guys, thank you for tuning in to the Mets Night Show on the channel and on X. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you tomorrow for a Mets pregame show for Mets Phillies. And we hope for the best with Kodai Senga on the mound. Hayden, thank you for coming on somewhat short notice, but hopefully we do this again soon, buddy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Rob. It was great. LFGM, and yeah, let's go Mets. Let's win a series.
All right, guys. Have a good night, and let's go Mets.
Bob on the mic, spitting truth from the heights. Queens unite under stadium lights. Bright nights, 7 train rides. Dreams born in the real hum. Brooklyn to Queens, yeah, we all about that outcome. This our time, this our cheer.